Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Hare Kṛṣṇa, dear devotees. Please join us in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Welcome. Today we will be studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 12, Chapter 11, Summary Description of Mahāpuruṣa. Please join us for Jayarada Madhava prayers. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Please join us for Guru Pranati. Oh, Mangalacharan, please. Together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirye Shratam Swakatha Kṛṣṇa Punya Shamana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhasatam Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Ruptam Shloke Bhaktir Bhakti Naishtiki. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Please join us in the recitation of the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 12, Chapter 11. So here, in this lesson, there are two blessings. First blessing is how one can achieve success in life. And this has been attested by Srila Vishwanath Chakravartipad. And then the second is how one can free oneself from all sinful reactions of not just this life, of many millions of lives. So amazing two blessings are there. Text 1. Shri Shaunaka Uvacha.
Shri Shaunaka Uvacha.
Ate mammartham prachamo.
Ate mammartham prachamo.
Bhavantam bahuvittamam.
Bhavantam bahuvittamam.
Samastatantra radhante.
Samastatantra radhante.
Bhavan Bhagavata Tattvavit.
Bhavan Bhagavat Tattvavit.
Shri Shaunaka Uvacha.
Shri Shaunaka Uvacha.
Shri Shaunak said,
Shri Shaunak said,
Atha,
Atha,
now,
now,
imam,
imam,
this,
artham,
matter, prichamaha,
prichama,
we are inquiring about,
bhavantam,
from you, bahuvittamam, the professor of the broadest knowledge,
the possessor of the broadest knowledge,
samasta, of all, tantra, the scriptures prescribing practical methods of worship, radha ante, in the definitive conclusions, bhavan, you, Bhagavata, O great devotee of the Supreme Lord, Tattvavit, the knower of the essential facts. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Shri Shaunak said, O Suta, you are the best of learned men and a great devotee of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, we now inquire from you about the definitive conclusion of all Tantra scriptures. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Please join us in Guru Pranati. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dinata Deshatarine Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tadaham Vande Shri Gurum Deenataranam. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Kṛṣṇa, dear devotees. So, Bhagavatam continues because Shaunaka Rishi, he has more inquiries. He is not satiated. So Sutta Goswami finished Srimad Bhagavatam in the 12th canto, 5th chapter itself. And then 6th chapter we saw that Parikshit Maharaj, he passes away. And then there are description of Markandeya Rishi happen in the last 3 chapters, 8th, 9th and 10th. And one who recites the sweet pastime, of Markandeya Rishi, means again how his glories were even chanted by who? Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati. They glorified Markandeya Rishi. One can be, fully relieved from the clutches of Maya just by doing that. Can you imagine such an amazing blessing we discussed last time? And now the blessings just keep increasing. And when I was reading this chapter, I was reminded as how the blessings continue to increase, even though, these are all inquiries of Shaunaka Rishi, beyond what was initially, covered by Shukdev Goswami. Shukdev Goswami at the bank of Ganges had covered Srimad Bhagavatam for Parikshit Maharaj. But Shaunaka Rishi, he's like, I have this great opportunity, I have this great speaker, and he is the knower of all the Puranas. So I want to take best, advantage of this situation for the sake of people in this Kali age, for us. So he is giving all these advantages to us by asking these questions. For our benefit, he is asking these questions. And so the description of Mahāpuruṣa, when I was reading this, I'm reminded of a wonderful incident that happened. So when Srila Prabhupada, he was visiting Visakhapatnam, known as Vizag now, there they were staying at Shri Chaitanya Mutt. There was it was a Gaudiya Vaishnava ashram, at that ashram. So there, Srila Prabhupada was staying, and Maharaj Puri, his godbrother, was the maintainer and caretaker of that particular ashram. And as we know, there it's beach, ocean, and so forth. So the devotees, accompanying Srila Prabhupada, they said, "Can we go?" Some of them were surfers, and so they would go. Which also reminds me that Srila Prabhupada used to call the surfers, the people who like to surf on the waves of the ocean, as sufferers. These are the sufferers of the ocean. So in their next life, because they are not meditating on the Supreme Lord, Srila Prabhupada used to say that they would be born as fishes, the aquatics, and would enjoy, because that's what they desire. They want to just get in the ocean and enjoy the waves. So as fishes and aquatics, they will get to enjoy the waves in their next life, but actually it will be suffering. So they're actually preparing for their next life to be full of sufferings, because along with enjoying the waves comes all kind of sufferings. One of the interesting suffering is that there is actually a song that in the water the fish is thirsty, and that is a big joke because it's already in the water, but then the salt water does not quench anyone's thirst. So when the devotees, they came back, Srila Prabhupada, he continued his discussions, Bhagavad Katha and so forth. So next day, when they were heading, His Grace Shyamsundar Prabhu, who was the secretary at that time of Srila Prabhupada, he was, serving Srila Prabhupada very closely. He asked this question, "Isn't this Maya?" Srila Prabhupada said, "How is that? Kṛṣṇa says, I'm the taste in water, and there you are going in water. Kṛṣṇa says, sun and moon are my eyes. So everything in this material world that we see, we can relate to Kṛṣṇa. The earth is his feet, right? So if we fall down, we always fall at his feet. That's why earth is also called one of the mothers. So there are various ways. And why is this description of Mahāpuruṣa being described here? But the picture is given in Bhagavad Gita. That's the amazing part. That's another aspect. So as we hear about the description of Mahāpuruṣa, we see this universal form of the Lord. Right? So that has been described. So this is in Bhagavad Gita as it is. But the description has been very nicely given in this chapter as how Lord is, even through material ways, even through our material eyes of seeing material things, we can remember Kṛṣṇa. And that was the message Srila Prabhupada was sharing at that time, saying that Kṛṣṇa is everywhere. Everything is connected to Kṛṣṇa. And if you think that something is not connected to Krishna, that is Maya, that which is not. Because everything is Lord Krishna's potency, everywhere Lord Krishna is present. So he expands himself and even enters Paramatma, Super Soul, even between space between the atoms, even the void between the atoms is there. So how could it be that anything is not connected with Krishna? Yet at the same time we know, Acharya says Krishna does not step out of Vrindavan, but he expands himself to carry out all the working of this, the spiritual as well as material universes. So in this way we can understand that Lord is everywhere. And so here the description of Mahāpuruṣa, so the discussion is starting with Tantra and so forth. And before we go forward, I would like to cover the blessing. So blessing is, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he recommends that we become humble by practicing the following meditation. And what is this meditation? The earth which is always visible to me is an expansion of the lotus feet of my Lord, right? So when we fall, we are just falling at the lotus feet of Krishna. That should make us really humble. Then, who is always to be meditated upon, all moving and non-living beings, non-moving living beings, have taken shelter of the earth, right? We all reside on the earth and are thus sheltered at the lotus feet of the Lord. For this reason, I should respect every living being. So we should not even commit offenses to general populace. Janaprad is also a very bad thing. We should be respectful to every living being and should not envy anyone. That's how we get the status of Ajat-Shatru, when we don't envy anyone. So Yudhishthira Maharaj was known as Ajat-Shatru, whose enemy is not known from his perspective. Of course, we all know that Duryodhana was very envious. So he had from that perspective, somebody could think, but that was not Yudhishthira Maharaj's response. He would, be very brotherly and very compassionate towards Duryodhana. So that's how we learn from the great devotees of the Lord, like Yudhishthira Maharaj, from Arjun, from Bhim, that these are, and Nakul Sahadev. Sahadev was the youngest one. And even though he was a great astrologer, he was a great Pandit, Sahadev, the youngest one of the Pandavas, right? Madri had two sons, Nakul and Sahadev. And Sahadev was a great Pandit. Duryodhana knew this. So he would consult with Sahadev, but his elder brothers, the four other brothers, would not consult with him because he is the youngest one. What does he know? So, yet at the same time, he never challenged. He was always just in the humble mood, serving his brothers, his elder brothers. And for this reason, we should respect every living being and should not envy anyone. In fact, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says, all living entities constitute the Kaustuba gem on my Lord's chest. Therefore, I should never envy or deride any living entity. So again, the Kaustuba jewel, where is it placed? On Lord's chest. So it is very close to his heart. Kaustuba mani. So that is the necklace in Lord's neck has a mani this on the chest, which is resting on his chest. And that is very close to the heart, right? If something is very close to the heart, then you keep it close to your chest. So every living entity is very dear to Lord. So dear that Lord resides in the heart of every living entity. When we get this material body, then he is there in our hearts. Ishvar sarva bhutanam hridadeshe arjuna tishtati. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says that Lord is everywhere, sarva bhutanam hridadeshe. And where does he reside? He resides in the heart of every living entity. Brahman sarva bhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. Now this is where the revelation comes, that we are all bewildered by this material energy and are riding on this yantra rudhani, on this machine. Now that machine's description is being asked by Shaunaka Rishi. He wants to know about the yantras, right? The inquiry is, actually tantras, scriptures. So he's talking about tantras. So the three aspects, mantra, yantra and tantra. Yantra refers to machines. Tantra refers to some specific, rituals specific to, different kind of objects. And mantra we all know, Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So we all know. And mantra is one that can control the mind. Mantra, the deliverer of mind. So when we chant the mantra, it is to deliver our mind. We want to make the mind a friend, a best friend, by taking to the chanting of the holy name so that we can attain the purpose of this life. So, as Srila Prabhupada is explaining, soon later on, afterwards, that incident happens. That, Saraswati was given, she's daughter of Shyamsundar Prabhu, his Grace Shyamsundar Prabhu and Malti Mataji. And she was given a small statue of Krishna. But, when she was running by, Srila Prabhupada said, so where is Krishna? So she's like, I don't know, I can't find him anywhere. And then the devotees were laughing, and it seems like they were passing, that small Krishna from one hand to another. And she was running.
Doll.
Yeah. So a small, doll of Krishna. So as they were passing and hiding, then she was like worried, and Srila Prabhupada was asking, so where is Krishna? Who has Krishna? So when this question was asked, who has Krishna? She immediately shouted very nicely, saying, oh, Srila Prabhupada has Krishna, he has Krishna, and everybody appreciated, yes. So Srila Prabhupada has Krishna, and he is giving Krishna open-handedly to everyone in this world. Samadarshina, without making any discrimination, with equal vision, he is seeing everyone, and he is giving Krishna to us. So that is his mercy. And all we have to do is, we have to pass on his mercy, which we have received, on to others. Because His Holiness Niranja Swami says this very nicely. Chanting of Hare Krishna mantra is the perfection of life. And the perfection of life is the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra. So it is the means and the end. So by taking to Krishna consciousness, we become happy now and we stay happy eternally. So if we are looking for happiness, which every living entity is, Anand Bhayo Abhyasat. So of course, all we have to do is raise our hand and chant Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Now next morning, Srila Prabhupada, when he sees Malti Mataji and Shyamsundar Prabhu, he says, so where is your all-attractive daughter? So Her Grace, Malti Mataji, she says, oh, she is in all-attractive Maya. And then Srila Prabhupada responds, actually, she is all attractive, meaning that she is Maya. So she is very attractive. So again, from that perspective, children are very attractive, and especially when they are very nicely, engaged in devotional service, and the parents are engaged in devotional service. They appear more happy, joyful, and wonderful. So Srila Prabhupada, he used to give these sweets. They were called as simply wonderful. And then once he was distributing the sweets after the class, and at that time, one of the devotee commented that Srila Prabhupada, you are simply wonderful. And Srila Prabhupada responded, like in low voice, and you become simply wonderful. So again, this is a very important way. To become simply wonderful, all we have to do is, surrender to the all-wonderful Lord Shri Krishna and his devotees. And by their mercy, we all become wonderful. We all become happy. So, Sutta Goswami, he is first telling Shaunaka Rishi about the material objects, through which one can understand the major limbs, the secondary limbs, the weapons and the garments of Lord Shri Hari. So this nice description has been given by that is the representative of the Supreme Lord. Now, as the universal person, when we are hearing about this pastime, we can relish it if we understand that these are material things that we are able to see in this material universe, and we can relate it for us to remember Lord Shri Krishna. Right? So, we already covered. Earth is his feet. So, if we fall down, we fall at his feet. Now that's a very nice remembrance, right? If we are on earth, then we are at the shelter of his feet. Now sky as his navel. So from sky sprouts many things, right? And from Lord's navel sprouts the lotus flower on which Brahma appears. And Brahma is the personality who causes the secondary creation within this material universe. While Mahāpuruṣa has already created many material universes, but the secondary creation has been entrusted to Lord Brahma to perform. And the wind, his nostrils. So again, that is the passage, respiratory system. So again, when we are looking from that perspective, when the wind has his nostrils, sometimes when we see heavy winds flowing, then we can understand that something is going on, and we can remember, oh, wind is his nostrils, so we can take shelter of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa in his Mahāpuruṣa form, remembering him in everything that we see. And the demigods are the of procreation. So these are Daksha and others, Prajapatis. They are his genitals. So again, progeny happens through Prajapatis. So from Lord Brahma appears different Prajapatis. Daksha is a Prajapati. There are so many other Prajapatis. And Kashyapa Muni, husband of Diti and Aditi, he is also a Prajapati. So they cause further increase in the population. And death is his anus, right? Very bad experience. So we can even look at death, that, oh, this incident which is full of pain, which is full of, discarding all the bad things. So basically from that perspective, we can understand that our bodies, when we, completely disintegrate, these bodies are going through that. We are living entities. We are, Jivera Sarupoya Kṛṣṇa Nityada. So we are eternal summit. So we pass on. But the bodies that we are sometimes very much attached to, very much attracted to, are basically going to get disintegrated and pass through the anus, so pass through the death. So we can remember it in this way. And that's why, in the due course of time, our body ages, it disintegrates. So when we understand that disintegrate, we are understanding, okay, this body is approaching near the anus. And the moon is his mind. So the moon is his mind. So we can imagine, it's like moon causes so many wonderful activities, like the rise and fall of the waves, right? Rise, the tides that appear in the ocean. It can cause such strong effect. And also it has, on the 11th day of every month, means again we have this Ekadashi time, that's when the moon's effect is the strongest. It's not when the full moon is there, that's not the time, but actually Ekadashi time the moon is very effective. And so it is also said that we should restrict the amount of water that we intake, because it affects us. And also as the night approaches, sometimes the effect of moon as it rises starts showing its effect. And people who are attracted to the mode of ignorance and mode of passion, they start to start acting. That's why in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Kṛṣṇa says that for a yogi, what is night is actually day for the bhogis, for the materialist. And what is night for the materialist is awakening for the devotee. And one of the way we can relate to this is when we go to, like metropolitan cities, we see that around 3 or 4 a.m. they are closing their clubs after all night of dancing and all kind of, abominable activities that are going on. They close their clubs, and this is the time when the devotees are going to the temple, right? 4:30 Aarti is going on. So as they are planning to go to sleep, we are awakening. And when we are sleeping, they are actually getting up and going out to the club to spend their time. So that is also very important to understand, the moon's effect. That's why lunar is also another name for moon effect. So lunatics, that is derived from moon, lunar aspects. And lunar is like lunar cycle, solar and so forth. There's lunar calendar and solar calendar again. And the heavenly planets are his head. So again, this is where we are now starting to see that higher planetary systems. So higher planetary systems near the head, we can remember that way. And the directions are his ears. So again, directions, we always, when we see this direction aspect, when somebody calls us, our head immediately moves in that direction. Why? Because of the effect of ears. They are able to, this is another wonderful thing, that Lord has created everything so wonderfully that this yantra rudhani maya, this material body that we have received, has been crafted by his external potency, right? Mahamaya. And then there is Yog Maya, Radharani. And then there is Lord. And all of them are eternal, right? And even though inferior, it is infallible. So that's also another thing that's given in this chapter. And so she carries out her activities very nicely. And she gives us this body, which is indirectly, means again, she is giving, but directly, actually, indirectly it's coming from the Lord. So when people are attracted to the body, so you can imagine, they are attracted to something made by the energy of Lord Shri Krishna. So imagine how much more beautiful Lord Krishna must be. We cannot even imagine. And even Cupid, when he came to shoot, his arrow at Lord Shri Krishna at a Rasa dance arena, he was not paying attention. He was trying to shoot, but every time he was about to shoot, one of the gopis would come in front. So he would stop himself. And then finally, he decided to shoot one of the gopis, and at that time Lord Krishna came. And so suddenly he was surprised that he's looking at Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna is so attractive that he saw with full focus at who Lord Krishna is, how attractive he is, and immediately fainted. Forgot about the shooting completely. So that's why Lord is also known as, by the name, Madana Mohana, the one who has enchanted the Cupid. So the Cupid faints by looking at his beautiful form. While Cupid, we know, Kamdev, he is very proud of his own beauty, and his ability is to lure away by, enhancing the senses of a person. So the directions are his ears, and the demigods protecting the various planets are his many arms. So all these administrators, the presiding deities of different planets, and especially Indra, is again, as the universal form description goes in Bhagavad Gita, Indra is said to be his arms. So of course all his associates are many arms. And now some interesting aspect comes. The god of death is his eyebrows. So you can imagine when somebody is angry, the eyebrows really become tense. So this is Yamraj, we can imagine. So again, when things are not going well and somebody gets angry, we can understand that there is going to be a bad reaction coming from those actions. So that is again when the Lord of death is his eyebrows. And shame is his lower lip. So again, lower lip happens to move a lot, right? Upper lip is mostly stationary, moving back and forth, but it's the lower lip. And shame, it causes many kind of frivolous activities that we engage in. They are the cause of the shame. And the greed is his upper lip. Now, upper lip is his greed because, we get lured, by various lusty desires. So that's the upper lip. And upper lip has a beautiful curvy form, right? So Lord's upper lip is very beautiful, that curvy form which attracts, which causes lusty desires to arise in the heart. So when somebody gets lusty desire, oh, he's getting attracted by Lord's upper lip. You can joke. Now comes the interesting one. Delusion is his smile, Maya. And one of the simple way to understand is enchanting smile. So when people come to the temple and they say, oh, Lord is smiling, and they're asking for various kind of material benedictions, and Lord is smiling, and they're thinking, oh, Lord understood what I want, and Lord is smiling because he's saying, what are you asking? You should be asking the right thing. So he's asking with the opposite reflection, that we should be asking to serve him. We should be his order suppliers, not making him our order suppliers. Not asking for things, but to serve him. When we serve Lord Shri Krishna, then our senses are fully satisfied. We're all seeking to satisfy our senses, right? But we do not know the process. So the process is not that I get so many interesting, sense gratifying things or objects or relationships so that I will be happy. The truth is, let me reawaken my relationship with the Lord by serving Him. He is the Supreme Master, I am the eternal servant. When I serve Supreme Lord, then Lord is pleased, and Lord is Hrishikesha. He is the master of the senses. So all my senses will automatically be satisfied. That is the true formula, right? And then the moonshine is his teeth. So when somebody is smiling and the teeth show, they look very sparkling. Sometimes people put this ting effect, right? When they try to, they try to enhance the video by using different kind of effects. So that moonshine, is his teeth. So that is the true moonshine. That's the real ting effect, because what we see in Bhagavad Gita, that when universal form has been identified, that all these warriors at the Kurukshetra, they are being attracted by his teeth, and some of their heads are getting smashed by these teeth. So people, they look at this, like a flame, like moths, they are rushing into the flame. That has been identified. So people get attracted by moonshine. Similarly, just like moths, they get attracted by a flame, by light, and they forget about themselves and they just burn in it. So this is another way, how this attraction in this material world is also, we can understand, oh, these are the teeth. And when somebody shows their teeth, you can understand, okay, this is not going well. This is not a smiling teeth. This is about to be chewing teeth. And who's going to be chewed? Well, they're the ones who are there smiling at. And the trees are his Almighty Purusha's bodily hairs. So again, when we talk about hair, the trees are the hair. And what about the hair on the head? What are they? So the clouds are the hair, wandering. So in the picture, it's very nicely given that how clouds have been shown to be just, beside his head. So again, that's the hair on the head. The clouds are the hair on his head. And the description goes on. So Sutta Goswami is continuing to describe that everything in this material world can be related with Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. We can use this relationship by remembering Lord Kṛṣṇa every day, every moment. His flower garland is his material energy. So now garland is circular in nature, right? Material energy is always causing us to go in circles, yet at the same time never stopping. So it feels like we are like the rats in that wheel, constantly running. So that is what seems to be the significance. And also causing all kind of delusions, right? So all kind of abilities when we see in someone, they are just, Srila Prabhupada describes, they are just like zeros, right? They are all circles. But on their own, they don't have any value. To have value, they have to be dedicated in serving Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. Then we get the one. And when there is one in front of all these zeros, then there is a significance. That is a very important aspect. So, and I remember so many times when there are garlands at the temple, and people are always running for the garlands, and they're getting the garlands. And sometimes I've seen devotees, they just get a few petals and they're happy. And these people, after having taken the garland, they are wandering around, yet at the same time, it's not really the garland they are honoring. They are saying, oh, how do I look in this garland? That's also another aspect which makes it very interesting, that how in this material nature, when things are already associated with Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, they are Kṛṣṇa. So again, yet at the same time, they are looking from a material perspective. But devotees, they just see the garlands on anyone else's neck, that these are the garlands they were offered to the deities, and now the person is wearing so wonderful garland. So they are thinking about how merciful Lord is, that He is distributing His mercy through His devotees. Otherwise, what was that? The words? I forgot. Otherwise, what is happening? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that wake up, sleeping soul. Jiva jago, Gora Chandra bole, Kota nidra jao maya, Pishachira kole. Wake up, living entities. For how long will you lie in the lap of this witch called Maya? Maya is that which is not, right? So it is us who are making that distinction. Otherwise, Maya is known as an external energy of the Lord, and she is his potency, right? Serving him. Maya dakshina prakriti suyate sa characharam. So again, Lord Krishna says, it is my material energy, Maya dakshina prakriti. And he also describes the characteristics. Devi Esha Gurumai Mama Maya Duratyaya Mame Viye Prapadyante Maya Metam Tarantite. Devi Esha Gurumai. This material energy of mind has these three modes. Guna. Guna also means ropes, but also modes of material nature. Sattva Guna, mode of goodness. Rajoguna, mode of passion. Tamoguna, mode of ignorance. So these three modes are there. Mama Maya Duratya. And she is very difficult to cross over. It's like a big ocean that we have to cross over. Very difficult, right? If you are faced with a big ocean to cross over, you're wondering how are you going to swim across. Mame Vye Prapadyante. So whoever surrendered to my lotus feet, Maya Metam Tarantite. They can easily cross over this material universe. When this verse is recited, we at least have one or two raised handing. How could it be that the devotees can cross this ocean, but the materialists cannot? Because the ocean is ocean. Well, Lord Krishna reveals that for a devotee, the whole ocean becomes the size of a calf's hoof print. And you can easily jump over a calf's hoof print. Right? So that has also been revealed in the scriptures. So now, Sutta Goswami is describing, and everyone is relishing that how expertly he is telling how everything is related to Lord Shri Krishna. And this is very useful, especially for people in this Kali age, for us. So they are hoping that we hear this and we take to this and we relate it in our everyday life, in seeing Krishna in everything. And when there is Krishna, there cannot be any effect of Maya. Krishna Surya Sama, Maya He Andhakara. So Maya is darkness, but in the presence of sun, there cannot be any darkness. And we can also relate to it this way. When we are facing the sun, we cannot see our shadow, right? It is when we are keeping our back to the sun, we see the shadow right there. Why? Because our back is to Krishna. That's why we see Maya. So that is also another way to understand this. His yellow garments, they are the Vedic meters. Right, the various ways the Vedic hymns are being sung, so they are his yellow garments. And we can imagine garments have such a nice flow because of the wind flowing, so that can relate to it. His sacred thread, the syllable Om, composed of three sounds. What are these sounds? A, U and M. So that is also described in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17. And in the form of his two shark-shaped earrings, the Lord carries the process of Sankhya and Yoga. Analytical study and Yoga is the connection to the Supreme. So again, those two are carried. And his crown. So Lord has a beautiful crown on his head, bestowing fearlessness to the inhabitants of all the worlds. So he's not making any distinction. He's giving fearlessness. He's making us fearless. And is the supreme position of the Brahmalok. So that is at the Brahmalok state. Then the club of the Lord carries the chief element, Prana, right? Prana is the energy, right? Incorporating the potency of sensory, mental and physical strength. So it is from the various kind of life years that we get energy in our body. And they cause us to get physical strength, mental strength as well as physical strength. Sensory strength as well, sorry. And his excellent conch shell is the element water. Now the interesting thing is this, when I was reading this, the conscious is the element of water, but it is because of the water, the drop of water, through the processing, take the form of a conch shell, because there is a living entity which causes the form to expand. So within the conch, there is a living entity, aquatic, that lives. And his Sudarshan Chakra is the element fire. So now we are relating his various weapons to various type of material elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. And his sword, pure as the sky. So that's the effect of his sword. And his sky is the element ether. So we are talking about the 5 elements we just did. His shield embodies the mode of ignorance. His bow, named Sharanga, time. And his arrow-filled quiver, the working of sensory organs. So again, our working senses, arms, legs, genitals, anus, and tongue that likes to speak so much of mundane things at times, are the arrow filled with quiver. So we have to be very careful of this arrows filled quiver and use it in his service. So when he raises any of the arrows out, it is to be used in his service, not in disservice. So again, anukulena Kṛṣṇa anushilanam. So that should be the mode, that we want to perform a service that is favorable and is satisfying to the Supreme Lord, Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. And then the weapons continue. They are described that the arrows are said to be the senses, right? And his chariot is the active, forceful mind. And his external appearance is the subtle objects of perception. So all objects of perception that we see are his external appearance, and the gestures of his hands and the essence of all purposeful activities. So the gestures of his hands are actually giving us direction. When somebody says, where can I go? Where can I find this? Then people generally say, oh, you should go. There is a tendency of raising the hand. So that is where we can remember, that all purposeful activities, they are being directed just by the gestures of his hands. He doesn't have to work. He is just enjoying. So Srila Prabhupada was once asked about this, why the deity is there in a dancing position. Srila Prabhupada's response was, oh, Radha Kṛṣṇa, they are constantly dancing. The moment they stop, everything is finished. So they can eternally dance and will not get tired because it's rejuvenating, right? And similarly, we can eternally chant and need not stop because it is enlivening. It is the very life and soul of all the devotees. So I know it is very simply done at any place, any time. There is no rules and regulations around it. Anyone can take to it. All we have to do is raise our hand and chant, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reveals the mood, how one can constantly chant. Tranadapi shuniche na tarorapi sahishnuna, amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Thinking oneself to be more humble than the grass on the street. Tranadapi shuniche. More tolerant than the tree. Tarorapi sahishnuna. Amanina. Not expecting respect for oneself. Manadena. But ready to give respects to everyone else. Kirtaniya sadahari. One can constantly glorify the Lord, Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So, the sun globe is the place where the Supreme Lord is worshipped. Now he is coming to an area where the descriptions of the different other personalities are being associated. So when we see at sun, as Lord says that sun are my eyes, that's one way of looking at it. But also we can remember that this is where Lord Kṛṣṇa is eternally worshipped. The sun planet or the sun star is basically a star, right? The globe. And the spiritual initiation is the means of purification for the spirit soul. So if we want to purify ourselves, we should take to initiation in a bona fide sampradaya, from a bona fide spiritual master. There are 4 sampradayas coming, right? we have Rudra Sampradaya coming from Lord Shiva. Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. Of all the Vaishnavas, Lord Shiva is the topmost Vaishnava. And then we have Shri Sampradaya coming from Goddess Lakshmi. Her glories are also there in this particular chapter. Then there is Kumar Sampradaya, the Sampradaya that's coming from Chatur Kumaras. And then there is Brahma Sampradaya that's coming from Lord Brahma. And we are in Brahma Sampradaya. From Lord Brahma it comes to Devashi Narad. From Devashi Narad it comes to Vyasadev. Devashi Narad, imparted the important injunctions of the Shastras, reminding Vyasadev that he has not glorified enough the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So even after writing all the Vedas and Puranas, he is not satisfied. And so he is incited to write Bhagavad Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, that we are reading today. So by the mercy of Vyasadev, we get, this bright sun, Bhagavad Purana. And Bhagavad Purana is non-different from Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇe sudhamo padyate dharma jnana dibhi saha kala nashta drishamesha puranako dhunitita. So again, Lord Kṛṣṇa, when he departed for his supreme abode, along with dharma and jnana and adi, right? So great qualities as personified, they left with him, like religion and knowledge and many others. So the people who have in this darkness of this Kali age have lost their vision, they will get vision by the light of this Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, which has arisen like a bright sun after the departure of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa to his supreme abode. So that is the blessing we get, that we get Bhagavad Purana. And what is rendering devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead? It is the process of eradicating of one's sinful reactions. So if you want to get rid of your sinful reactions, all you have to do is serve Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. And that starts simply with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. So also in Vishnu Purana it is given 1940. Evam yata jagaswami deva devo janadanaha avataram karotya eva tatha shistata sahayini. So this is related to goddess of fortune. So just like the Lord, in the same way that the Lord of the universe, the God of gods, Janardhan, descends to this world, so his consort, the goddess of Lakshmi, does also. So wherever there is Lord, when he comes, his associates come. And among his associates, there is an expansion, right, of Radharani. So every time Lord expands, there is an expansion of Radharani constantly accompanying him. So when he comes as Mahavishnu, there is goddess of fortune. So all Vishnus, they have goddesses of fortune as their consort. So as his consort, she comes. And in the Padma Purana, the 18 doorkeepers of the Lord. So sometimes people have this inquiry, okay, Jai Vijay were the doorkeepers and Nanda Sunanda, they are also the doorkeepers. And it is very interesting, they are the doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, right? And 18 of them. So these doorkeepers, what are their names? So it's given in Padma Purana, what are their names are. So please pay attention as I name them. And they are actually appearing as pair. Why? Because there are 9 doors and they are standing on each side of the door, right? One on left, one on right. Now when we talk about 9 doors, wait a minute. Doesn't that remind of something? That every material body that we get in this material universe has 9 gates. So there is a direct correlation from that perspective. So that's why when devotees, they worship Lord and Lord resides in the heart, they become like Vaikuntha, right? And when we take shelter at the lotus feet of a pure devotee, like Srila Prabhupada, we feel the presence of Vaikuntha. That's why wherever Srila Prabhupada was visiting, everybody could feel the Vaikuntha effect. He was carrying Vrindavan with him. So that effect is there in the presence of pure devotee. And when Lord Kṛṣṇa and Mother Parvati, they were glorifying Markandeya Rishi, they were saying that in taking bath at the Ganges and going to different pilgrimages, many times one has to carry this out to be able to purify oneself. But simply by a sight of a devotee, right? Momentary association, one can be purified and attains perfection. So Nanda and Sunanda are guarding one gate. Then Jai Vijay, they are guarding another gate, second gate. Chanda and Prachanda, they are guarding the third gate. Bhadra and Subhadra, they are guarding the fourth gate. Then Dhata and Vidhata, guarding the fifth gate. Kumada and Kumadaksha, guarding the sixth gate. Pundriksha and Vaman are guarding the seventh one. Shanku, Kṛṣṇa and Sarvanetra are guarding the eighth one. And Sumukha and Supratishthita, they are guarding the ninth one. So these are the 18 gatekeepers guarding the 9 gates of Vaikuntha. And the Lord's spiritual body, weapons, garments and associates, they are all pure transcendental existence. Right? And they are considered identical with Him. So when we understand from this perspective, then we start to appreciate that Lord, when He descends in this material world, He is sending His devotees to have interaction, even when He is sending them as demons. So when we think of, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksh, Jai Vijay, they came their first birth, when they were cursed by the Kumaras. Then Lord came. But these two personalities were still under the influence of Yoga Maya. That's why they were so powerful. Under the influence of Mahamaya, we are, right? We are not as powerful because Hiranyaksh, he could cause Samudra Manthan just by twisting his waist in the ocean. So he could just twist and he could cause that Samudra Manthan. Later on, that Bali Maharaj, right? The great grandson of Hiranyakashipu, grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, had to engage with the Devatas to do the same churning of the ocean. Hiranyaksh was so powerful because even there he was under the influence of Yoga Maya. So it was Yoga Maya who was providing the protection. So Lord is very protective of His devotees. And we all hear as how Ravana and Kumbhakaran, they were so powerful. Again, second birth. Third birth as Dantavakra and Shishupal. Again, they were great warriors of their times. And they were almost at the same level as Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa. They were His cousins. Can you imagine? So they are considered non-different, identical. But this identity doesn't mean that they have become Kṛṣṇa. The identity is in the mood. We are qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord, but quantitatively different. From that perspective, we are minuscule, He is magnanimous. We are finite, He is infinite. We are, limited, He is unlimited. So this is the way we have to understand that quantitatively we are different. So that's how we have to understand. Yet at the same time, since everyone is engaged in His service, all the personalities that we talked about, that's why they are identical. And why we are feeling so remorse or sometimes sad and wondering, why am I suffering so much? Why is there so much pain in this world? Why is there so much cold or heat and all these dualities? That is because of our looking at things apart from Kṛṣṇa. When we look at things connected with Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, then automatically the devotional service in our heart, pours out in serving Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. How do I serve? How can I make Him happy? Because the formula is, when I make Him happy, I will be happy. And we have to test it out. Just like you do any experiment, any science experiment, you have to have a hypothesis. You have to have, your set of material, and our body is that, we have to carry this out on our body. And every morning, Mangal, Brahma Muhurt time is the most auspicious time when we should get up and start chanting the holy name on the japa beads. Now, sometimes people ask, why do we have to chant on the japa beads, right? These are tulsi beads. Now, Lord Vishnu means at His feet, the tulsi leaves are there, right? Tulsi Mata, she is residing at His feet. She doesn't even go anywhere. While Goddess of Lakshmi, goddess of fortune, sometimes to give benedictions to her devotees, she leaves the company of Lord Narayan, Lord Vishnu. But Tulsi Devi, she stays at his lotus feet. So Lord Vishnu appreciates Tulsi Devi higher than the goddess of fortune. So she is a pure devotee of Lord Shri Krishna. And when we are in association of a pure devotee, then we are purified. So it is the mercy that we get by chanting of the holy name, on Tulsi beads, that it multiplies manifold the effect, and we, get that blessing through Tulsi Mata. So devotee of the Lord can pass the mercy, right? One who has Kṛṣṇa can pass the mercy, like we talked about in Saraswati's case, the daughter of Shyam Sundar Prabhu and Malti Mataji, as how the mercy flows, in our case, from Srila Prabhupada, and then from our spiritual master, when we go to the temple through the hands of the devotees. So when sometimes people ask, that can you give me this, give me this, give me this, and even if it's not available, sometimes we see a devotee is not able to pass. You know why? Because he doesn't have it yet. Only when somebody has something, they can say yes to others and give it to them. Otherwise, no is a takya kalam, right? Then what do you call it? They're ready to say no before even hearing you, what you're asking. So again, you have to be very, very careful from those perspectives. So you should ask things from devotees, because devotees have it. And you should also with the mood of engaging in, and avoid the mood of taking it, because again, from our own experience, we have seen that when you try to take something, your mood is not right, and afterwards you cannot even enjoy what you have received. So from that perspective, because mercy flows through devotees, and accepting it with open hands is very good. And Srila Prabhupada, by his many examples, have proven that if somebody is giving you something which is very auspicious for your spiritual life, for your devotion service, never say no. Right? So we should always be ready to accept. We should always have our arms open, that my dear Lord, I am ready to take your mercy, and please give me your mercy. Right? So that should be the attitude. Now, as Sutta Goswami, he is continuing to outline the process of practical service by which mortal soul like us can attain immortality. Because by remembering Kṛṣṇa, we become Kṛṣṇais, we become pure, we get purified. And so Shaunaka Rishi starts showing more interest. He wants to know about the expansions of the Lord in his form of the Sun God. Sutta replies that Lord Shri Hare, the indwelling control of the universe and its original creator, manifests himself in the form of the demigod of the sun. And then even material scientists, they have realized that yes, to sustain the world, sun is necessary. And it also shows the potency of time, right? With the rising and setting of the sun, those who are not devotees, their life is passing away, so they are getting aged. Now, why devotees are not said to be aged? Because they are not associating with the body. They are not thinking I am this body. They understand I am the spirit soul. But materialist is thinking I am this body, and this body is getting old, and finally I will die, which is an unnatural incident. We are all living entities. So we should not so much worry about the body, we should more worry about the soul. And to be able to carry on our journey to reach the goal, which is to attain the love of Godhead, to get Lord's mercy, we have to keep this body, because this is the vehicle, right? When you take care of your car and make sure that it goes through maintenance and all those processes, and you keep it clean, then it serves you right. So that should be the purpose of the body, not that you are so much focusing that you're thinking this car is my everything and forgetting about the journey altogether, and just frivolously driving it in all kind of bad terrains and all, on your joy rides. So we should avoid that for this body. I should be very, very careful. And so now Shaunaka Rishi, he is asking him to please describe, and this is where the second blessing comes, right? That the different sets of 7 personal features and associates of the Sun God exhibits during each month of the year. and what are their names and activities. Now, why are we going to discuss this? This is also very important. So, there is a blessing related to this, and so if you want to hear the blessing is that whoever remembers these deities, every morning and every day, at dawn and at sunset, all the sinful reactions of those personalities, means of person who's remembering them, dawn and at sunset, they are taken away. So these deities, they take away all the sinful reactions of those who remember them each day, at dawn and at sunset. So what are these 7 personalities? So every month represents a set of 7 personalities. Beginning from the Vaishak, there are different names for the sun god himself. There is a different name for the sage. So the sage, the Yaksha, the Gandharva, the Apsara, the Rakshas and the Nag. So these are the 7 personalities. They have different names, making a total of 7 categories, and 7 times 12. That is 84 in number total. So if you want to hear, please stay on and understand that one who remembers the opulences of the personality of Godhead in his form as a sun becomes free of his sinful reactions. So now we are going to read some of the names, but with this understanding that we are reading this to still remember Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, right? And because at Naimisharanya, Sutta Goswami gave all this wonderful knowledge, but he realized that all these sages who are gathered here, they are very much Vedantists. They are driven by this kind of knowledge. They want to remember name, place, and all these technical details, right? Devotees, we are happy just by serving Lord, and simply by doing that we can attain perfection. Now Srila Prabhupada, once he was asked, well, Arjun was how could he understand Vedanta philosophy? At that time, Srila Prabhupada reveals it. Yes, he was a householder, and on top of that, he was a warrior, he was a soldier on the battlefield. Yet at the same time, Lord Kṛṣṇa says, Bhakto asi, you are my devotee, so you can understand. So the only qualification to be able to understand Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa is to be his devotee. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanya chashmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato gyatva vishte tadanantaram. A devotee can understand tattvataha, in truth, as Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So it doesn't matter whether you are a householder or you are a brahmachari, or you are having a student life, or you are even a sannyasi or even a panaprasti. Doesn't matter any of those aspects. One has to just become a devotee, and one can, in due course of time, when rendering devotion service, can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now I am going to quickly read these names for next 5 minutes. So bear with me, so that folks who are very technically oriented, who wants to know what are the name, fame and glories about Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa in the 7 forms, starting with what are the 7 kind of personalities we talked about? Sun God himself, the sage, the Yaksha, the Gandharva, the Apsara, Rakshas and Nag. Right. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the month of Madhu, the great sage Dhata is the sun god. Kritasthali is the Apsara. Heti as the Rakshas, Vasuki as the Nag, Ritikrit as the Yaksha, Pulastya as the sage, Tumburu as the Gandharva. They rule the month of Madhu. Aryama as the sun god, Pulaha as the sage, Athauja as the Yaksha, Praheti as the Rakshasa, Punjikasthali as the Apsara. Now Punjikasthali, we heard about her in Markandeya Rishi's story in the 8th chapter of this canto, 12th canto. She was the one who accompanied Cupid to lure away, but she failed miserably. Narada is the Gandharva, and Kachanira as the Naga. They rule the month of Madhava. Mitra as the sun god, Atri as the sage, Pururusheya as the Rakshasa, Takshaka as the Nag, Menaka as the Apsara, Haha as the Gandharva, and Rathasvana as the Yaksha rule the month of Shukra. Vashishta is the sage, Varuna is the sun god, Rambha is the Apsara, Sahanjaya as the Rakshasa, Huhu as the Gandharva, Shukra as the Nag, and Chitrasvana as the Yaksha ruled the month of Shuchi. Whose name came? He was the crocodile in Gajendra's story. Indra is the sun god, Vishwavasu as the Gandharva, Shrota as the Yaksha, Elapatra as the Naga, Angira as the sage, Pramalocha as the Apsara, and Varya as the Rakshasa ruled the month of Nabhas. Vivaswan as the sun god. Vivaswan is the sun god, the presiding deity of sun. Ugrasen as the Gandharva, Vyagra as the Rakshasa, Asaran as the Yaksha, Bhragu as the sage, Anumlocha as the Apsara, and Sankalpal as the Nag ruled the month of Nabhasya. Pusha as the sun god, Dhananjaya as the Naga, Vata as the Rakshasa, Sushena as the Gandharva, Suruchi as the Yaksha, Gritatachi as the Apsara, and Gautama as the sage ruled the month of Tapas. So this is the same Gautama Muni whose wife was Ahilya, and he cursed her to become stone, and by touching the lotus feet of Lord Shri Ram, she came back to life. Ritu as Yaksha, Varcha as Rakshasa, Bharadwaj as the sage, Parjanya as the sun god, Senajit as the Apsara, Vishwa as the Gandharva, and Airavat as the Nag ruled the month known as Tapasya. Now this is not the same as the elephant Airavat. There is a Nag also by the name Airavat. Amsu as the sun god, Kashyapa as the sage, Taraksha as the Yaksha, Ritasena as the Gandharva, Urvashi as the Apsara, Vidyuchatru as the Rakshasa, and Mahashankha as the Nag ruled the month of Sahas. Bhaga as the sun god, Spurja as the Rakshasa, Arishtanemi as the Gandharva, Urna as the Yaksha, Ayur as the sage, Kratoktaka as the Nag, and Purvachitti as the Apsara ruled the month of Pushya. Twashta as the sun god, Jamadagni the son of Richika as the sage, Jamadagni the father of Parshuram. Kambhalashva as the Nag, Tilottama as the Apsara, Brahmapet as the Rakshasa, Shatajit as the Yaksha, and Didrashtra, different Didrashtra, as the Gandharva, maintain the month of Isha. Vishnu as the sun god, Ashvatara as the Nag, Rambha as the Apsara, Suryavarcha as the Gandharva, Satyajit as the Yaksha, Vishwamitra as the sage, and Makhapet as the Rakshasa ruled the month of Urja. So these are the 12 months, 7 personalities, different personalities acting as these ruling the different months of the year. So sometimes people get amazed when they hear that Lord Kṛṣṇa, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they ask different questions at times. So when Srila Prabhupada, he was visiting at Washington DC, this is where we are, and there was Mr. Dayani. He asked Srila Prabhupada this question: how can then the God come in a human form? Because human, when we talk of human body, it is limited. He could not perceive that Lord could be unlimited. So Srila Prabhupada, he says, Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanumashrutam. They think that he is a man. His original form is like that. So he is revealing, Srila Prabhupada is saying, that the original form of the Lord is human form, the two-armed human form. Yet he expands. So again, this is where we understand from the Acharyas that Lord's human form is two-armed, beautiful Shyam Sundar form, where he is, playing his flute and enchanting all of us with his beautiful smile, as we can understand. So this is also very important to understand, that thinking that he cannot come in a human form is limitation actually. His original form is human form, and then he expands in so many unlimited forms, and is everywhere, right? He is as super soul, as Paramatma, as he is in everyone's heart and even between the atoms, as Shirodakshai Vishnu. So, in the glories, it is very nicely described in the very first canto. Ite cham skalaha pumsa Kṛṣṇastu Bhagwan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Loke Mridayanti Yoge Yoge. Ite cham skalaha pumsa. So all these expansions that we have heard of Lord Shri Krishna, they are all referred to as in the singular form, the Supreme Personality of Godhead together, are just his portions or primary portions. Yet Kṛṣṇa tu Bhagwan Swayam. But Lord Shri Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indrari Vyakulam Loke. So the enemy of Indra, the Asuras, the demons, the demoniac personalities, they are causing all kinds of havoc in this material universe. They are causing all this anxiety in this material universe. Mridayanti Yoge Yoge. So to save the demigods who are the devotees, and to save the devotees who are like demigods, back and forth, you can understand, Lord appears in this, he advents in this material universe to save the devotees and to annihilate the miscreants. Yet Lord Krishna, when he appears, he only wants to have loving exchanges with his devotees. That Vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sansthapanathay, he lets his expansions take care of them. So that's why Vrindavan pastimes are the supreme pastimes. That's why Navadvip pastimes are the supreme pastimes, because this is where we see how Lord is lovingly, interacting with his eternal associates, his devotees, and we take shelter remembering that. And that's why, to get the same mercy of his loving exchange, we raise our hands and chant Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. Hare Kṛṣṇa. This is where we end the class. Please join us for Nasimadev prayers. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki jai, Nitai Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Shri Radha Karna Kalaye
भगवान की जय, प्रहलाद महाराज की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna.